look at the issue of safety from in our world, especially at this time in our lives in Nigeria. When we talk about safety, we're talking about safety on the roads, right? But then we're also talking about safety from COVID and all those things. And so all those protocols, NPIs, non-pharmaceutical protocols also have to come to play. But today we want to talk about safety this Christmas season. I have a panel joining us this morning. Olusegun Ogungbemide is the Lagos Sector Commander of the Federal Road Safety Commission. Thanks for joining us today.
It's a pleasure.
We also have Bola Edwards, who is a child safety and security expert. She is also convener of Strap and Safe Child Foundation. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
And as you would have seen, right beside her is Stanley Okoli, who is a political consultant. Thanks for joining us. As well as Uchenna Orji, who is Commissioner for Information in Abia State. I got that right? Ebonyi State, my apologies.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us today. Okay, so gentlemen, first of all, most of the time when we talk about safety and security, we just put children in the assumption block. We do not really consider them. For instance, when a person is kidnapped, we only think about the person that is kidnapped. We do not consider the effect on the children of the person that has been kidnapped, the family of the person that has been kidnapped, and all those things. So permit me to begin from there, because it seems like it's the biggest insecurity challenge that we have on our hands now. How does that resonate with you?
Well, it's quite worrisome, because children usually are relegated to the back burner, especially from this part of the world where we come from. And it would amaze you to know that we have a statistics of about, say, every 4 minutes, we lose a child all over the world. So for me, I think that's very staggering. And it's a wake-up call for everyone, stakeholders involved with children, to making sure that children are safe everywhere and anywhere they find themselves. So at this point where children are so insecure, so to speak, especially with all the insecurity that we have on around, we have to do more. As governments, as NGO, as guardians, as parents, and as custodians of those children. There's so much to be done.
Well, talking about so much to be done, are you comfortable with the pace of work that the authorities have put into ensuring the safety, especially of children in schools? I mean, when we talk about safety of adults, we know where they are. Just on the floor of the National Assembly, member of the House of Representatives, I think Chris Anubogo, something like that. What's his name now? Chris, yes, Azubogo, was complaining about some politicians in the Southeast being kidnapped. We'll come back to that one. But for children, we know that their locality is in schools. And Daily Trust, for instance, keeps a track record every day of children that are still in captivity. There's a report that says about 1,000 have been kidnapped this year, and about 200 or 300 of them are still in captivity. When in terms of doing more, what more do you expect to be done?
Well, especially with the advent of the abduction of children in the last few years, we've tried to put some certain things in place. And this is what we tell school owners, that for you to have these children in your custody, there's a lot you have to put in place. First, you have to think of the perimeter fence that you're putting up around the school area, meaning that the children have to be well walled up. You must have a manifest, making sure that the children that come to school are the same children that are going back home in their numbers. Then again, do we have technology? Have we been able to make use of technology, embrace technology by making use of CCTV, making sure that you monitor the activities of those children all around the school environment? Then again, you must have what we call risk assessment done. Risk assessment meaning that you must make sure that you check for hazard in and around the school environment, including human beings as well. Meaning that you have to be able to screen the people who come into the school environment.
Well, I guess you've just given government a to-do list this morning.
Absolutely.
While we are on holiday. We're talking about safety now. Well, it's not all we're talking about. So, Mr. Ogungbemide, as far as the road safety is concerned, we know it's an it's an annual thing for the Road Safety Commission, the Ember Month campaign. I know that some celebrity special marshals and the conventional special marshals, the road marshals, go around town from time to time to do these things, sensitize people about what to do to keep themselves safe and all of that. For you, how effective has that been over the years?
Thank you very much. If you want to judge from available information and data, and thank God you are one of the members, you agree with me that Federal Safety Corps has come a long way.
Oh, certainly.
Right from 1988, the foundation of the Corps was actually laid on advocacy. That was what we started with, not even enforcement. For the first 1 or 2 years, it was public enlightenment at motor parks, at through the media, irrespective of the source of the media. We made the best use of it. And along the line, we started appreciating the fact that in line with the normal jinx that towards the end of the year, crashes do, there's always an upsurge in the rate of crashes, and it became a thing of concern. So we started adopting the idea of upping our game towards the end of the year. That's why we introduced the normal annual flag off, just to, let me say, introduce the Ember season into us. But at the same time, we also appreciate the fact that from January till December, the crashes that kill somebody in January is not different from the one that claim lives in December. So rather than waiting till we get to September, why can't we just kick off from the inception so that we can save life? Because if Mr. B dies in January, he's not coming to enjoy Christmas that is coming up in December. So we can afford to protect the life of Mr. B right from January and still add more value to it. That's towards the Ember month. And this year, even what we have witnessed, I think we should give kudos to all the effort, because so many things have been brought in, and with the collaboration of all the media houses, virtually every week you see us featuring in one program or the other. And we are not just talking of the conventional sensitization. We go to motor parks. We call it morning cry. Every morning between 6 and 6:30, before that driver enters the road, our men are always there to speak with the driver and the passengers. Because we know that when it comes to issue of safety on our roads, it's not just about the driver.
And what kind of response or feedback or collaboration have you received from that particular activity?
At times we might not really be able to judge from the measure of achievements until we give analysis of what the crashes were.
But what's been the feedback from
the feedback activity? Is that the commuters are happy. Because, when they have a platform to talk to the driver when they are proceeding on that trip. So when it's making that misconduct on the road, they make reference. Maybe they just spoke to you at the park. And we're also able to speak with the management of the park. It's like handing over both the driver and the commuters to the management. So we are here to assist you to do your job. So the feedback has been quite encouraging. That's why we've not been able to stop it, because we know that people really appreciate what we are doing. And the best way is that you don't drop the winning team.
Absolutely.
You sustain it.
Well, the motor park is just one of your publics.
Exactly.
Another one of your publics are politicians, if I can say that. But so let me speak with them first of all. We're still talking about safety and security, especially for the season. Well, Mr. Oji, you are a politician in government, and I'm very sure that you must have concerns when you hear that there's been some level of security breach. I don't even know, sometimes it's difficult to call it safety or security, because either way, both of them seem to have a nexus somewhere. So when you hear about, any form of safety breach or security breach, how does it hit you? And is there anything you think your government or governments at whatever level should do to secure and protect citizens this particular season?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, whether it is safety or security, life is involved. And we are looking at threats to the life and property of the people. whether in Xmas time or in any other festivity whatsoever, or in any time within the year. It is important that government at all levels should show responsibility. Of course, using all the necessary authorities and agencies, including the Federal Road Safety and the security agencies, to ensure that the issue of safety and security is tackled. And in my state, I can say that we've shown the highest level of responsibility in this regard. We're looking at ensuring that that very mandate under the Constitution, that is the security of lives and property, which is the actually primary reason for government, is actually guaranteed. And so government is looking at ensuring that programs of the state are tailored towards ensuring that the dignity of the human person, the life of that person is not tampered with. And what are we doing? We're looking at providing the environment. If you are talking about security speaking, government is looking at social security measures, empowerment programs, looking after the old people, looking after the vulnerable ones, including the children, like you did mention. But government is also looking at fortifying the security architecture, ensuring that there is synergy, that is collaboration among the security agencies, whether paramilitary, whether military, whether of the armed forces, whether they are of state government or federal government, see how to bring them together through deliberate collaborations and patronages and all of that. And that we have done fantastically well in Ebonyi State. All the agencies are working together as if we are brothers and sisters, as if they are even state government agencies. And that has really enhanced security in our place.
Okay.
Yeah, but beyond this, we are taxing government officials to know that service to humanity is the essence of governance. And so what do? You have to be an ordinary person, even though you are in government. That is to say, you should know that that person in the street is even much bigger, much more bigger than you as an office holder.
Well,
so
it's
you
interesting.
Must,
my apologies. It's interesting that you put it that way, because I don't know, many people just have this assumption that once they are in a particular position, especially when they have that office and they have that card and they have that role, they seem to take it like, there is nothing. Those in government, well, you've spoken for those in government. Politicians who are not in government, I don't know if they think it's exactly the same, Mr. Okoli.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, the topic is a wonderful one, safety. But again, saying it's during Christmas is something I want to address, because it's not proper that we have to talk. Is it because we're in this Christmas period? It's safety generally, like my gentleman said, from January to December. I'm going to talk from my side of the country. I'm from the southeast. It's safety during big occasions. Majority of the southeasterners go troop down during occasions, like in the last Guba elections. A leading candidate was abducted since September till now. We don't know where he is.
Is he one of those mentioned by Honorable Chris Azubogu on the floor of the House, where the House urged the DSS, police, and others to end killings and kidnappings? He mentioned, the lawmaker made reference to one Mr. Obiora Agbasimalo,
Exactly.
and a number of others. I also remember that Senator Rochas Okorocha referenced the same insecurity and all of that in the southeast area and all of that, okay?
Yes. Like I said, safety and security, they are both the same thing, as far as I'm concerned. But again, it's not only security agencies. If the roads are drivable, then the security has been half solved. Then the personnel, they don't need to mount roadblocks. That is the best you can do. You don't have to mount roadblocks. Having said that, doesn't mean that the roadblocks are causing insecurity, because nobody has been abducted in the roadblocks.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It is in the bad roads. When you slow down to take care of a pothole, that is when these hoodlums will come in. So, like my gentleman said, they are trying their best in Ebonyi State. But then, what about the other part of the southeast.
Well, you are from the southeast. He is from the southeast as well. So I guess it's now perhaps then depends on what side of the divide you are.
Yes.
But you heard Madam talk the other time about the fact that when, for instance, an individual such as you mentioned has been abducted and all of that, I'm just wondering the impact on the family, especially the children.
Yes.
From your experience, what kind of feedback are you getting from the family?
I cannot put words to that. It's terrible. They are devastated. It's even a surprise they are still moving on. It's horrible. The major part of the family missing, and you think the children are going to be well? No, of course not. They are not. But the thing that is shocking me in particular, and a lot of us, is the silence of our government.
When you say government is silent,
Yes.
you know that that's not the only case on our hands. We just referenced about 200 children still in captivity.
Exactly.
So, and the call has been government should do the needful to bring these people out. So one would say government is doing everything. He also referenced the part of synergy among security operatives in the Southeast, especially at least in his own state. Mm-hmm. Is that to say the government is silent?
Yeah, when an incident occurs, if you bring out the information, what you are doing, keep people up to date, that is when you are actually doing something.
Okay.
If you are doing something and keep it to yourself alone, I guarantee you are not doing anything.
Well, let me ask the road safety man.
Okay.
You are one of the security agencies in the nation.
Yeah.
How much information is any security agency, in your own opinion, able to give out that will not compromise the process?
Well, anytime we have reason to sit and discuss about security as a team, we are always very conscious of the perception of members of the public. And even within the circle, to what extent can you trust the other person? So when it comes to managing information,
Security information.
it has its own straitjacket line so that it will not filter into the wrong hands. But at the same time, it's also very technical and delicate too. Because I have reason to say it sometimes that we allow some information to filter or unmanage because we don't know the gravity or the extent to which an organization is handling with such information. I spoke at length sometimes about Federal Safety Corps.
Yeah.
When it comes to security architecture of this country, the role of Federal Safety Corps has been undermined because people don't really appreciate the role they play. Every crime starts and ends on the road. Even when you intend to hijack a plane, you must take off from the road. Even when you want to go through the sea, to go, maybe in the days of the Niger Delta approach, they will still get to the base and perpetrate what they intend to perpetrate. They will still use the road back. So while on the road, we gather a lot of information. But the information we gather is not something we just throw open. It's sent to the appropriate quarters. So managing it is beyond our own establishment. But the most important thing is that when it's gathered, I send to the appropriate, which is my own higher office, that these are the things I noticed on the road. Because we know it's quite delicate, because it's something that has to do with life and property. So when it comes to management of information by agencies, among ourselves, we try not to allow any form of negligence, because we know if it happens, and that is what has been given the problem in the upper side of the country now, because the other man could not even trust the next person that is giving the information.
But what you just said now about the role of the road safety being undermined, it is something that I think will give anybody, a little bit of worry, because for instance, as you said, when it comes to the safety on the roads, it's your responsibility to get all the information.
Exactly.
So now, what he said now about bad roads being responsible for a sizable amount of insecurity or lack of safety on the roads. How does the FRSC take that on board or use that information?
We have our road survey unit where we take our time to check the road network. We check the bad roads, we check the bad design and bad construction. FRSC does not construct road.
Of course.
So what we do is to accumulate information and send to the appropriate quarters.
Okay.
But at times, like he rightly said, when the road is good and is free, insecurity is reduced. Because I remember there was a time there was an ID that said all block roads should be removed. The traveling time was saved, and insecurity was, because it's very difficult to stop someone that is on speed. But when you have reason to slow down, the tendency that people could come from every angle and get you down.
Okay.
So that is why government is so passionate about this, in as much as we have our own reservation, that when the road is extremely good, the indiscipline of road users brings about fatality. But when you are looking at, because we talk about safety and security now, so you have to balance it. And at the same time, we cannot say because we want to preserve lives and allow the roads to be bad. So it's all about giving advocacy in aspect of safety, that the roads are good and it brings about security. But when they are good and you are not disciplined on how to use the road responsibly, then it leads to crash, and crash leads to fatality.
Well, madam, you seem to be agreeing with everything.
Well, I'm soaking in all the information I'm getting.
Okay. And so in terms of the effect on children and the family, it's the Christmas season is a family season.
It is. What is Christmas without family?
Okay. And it's a time when people do a lot of traveling. For a very long time, for as far back as I can remember, you have to forgive me, my friends from the Southeast. It's almost like every Southeasterner has to go home. I want to believe that it's still the same.
I don't know if that's still the same with insecurity now.
Okay. But now, it was at some point. But now, there are still those who will travel.
Absolutely.
Travel time at the festive periods increase.
Absolutely.
Okay. For family, what would be your recommendations to them? What kind of information do they need to have? What kind of things do they need to do? Precautions they need to take to ensure that they don't go too far with this?
Okay. If anybody must travel around this period, I think it's very important for you to make sure that I don't know how to put this. I was on the road about 2 weeks ago. We went to Ekiti, and my heart was in my mouth. And I can't imagine having my family with me. You know, I was really so conscious. I couldn't even shut my eye for a second. So if you must put your family on the road, on our Nigerian highway, in this time and this period, you must make sure that, number one, you have a very good vehicle. You don't just put a car that you've been driving with around Lagos and you just hit the express and say you're going to even Ibadan. It must be in a very good condition. Then again, secondly, I'm also very, I also would advise that, what do I mean now? That family should make sure that the children they are traveling with, they are well strapped. You don't sit in the car, even as Oga, and just sit in the owner's corner and say that I'm fine. You must use your seat belt. I call it safety belt. It's not a decor. It is not part of a decoration of a car. It is a tool to be used. So from the point where you're taking off, strap the children. Strap yourself. If you as a driver, you're strapping up, then why would you leave the children like a moving object in the vehicle? And of course, very important that the route you're taking, you had mapped it out in your head. Because at times, what you see is not what you get. There are times that you had even gone ahead in your mind to say, okay, this is how I will take this Orebini road. And you get on Orebini road and you start the traffic from maybe, where will I clean now? My geography is reminding me, where is the nearest, and you now start crawling from there. So you must be ready for any eventuality as per traffic. Then again, psychologically wise as well, I think it's emotionally draining for children to put children on the road for more than 4 hours. Even traffic within Lagos State is tough. leaving children in the car, they're tired, they want to stretch and all of that. And even for the older ones, sitting in the car for so long right now, it's not even advisable anymore. And it's not like back in the day that you can drive off the road, park, we want to stretch. Nice. Nobody wants to stop on the highway. You just want to move. So we are talking about the psychological, the physiological, and of course the emotional state of the entire family.
Well, before I come to the gentlemen in both in power and in opposition, let me come to you, Mr. Ogunbemide. SBM Intelligence, released a report not too long ago and talked about what they called identified dangerous roads. Biniore Highway, Bini Aucho Kene Highway, Kefi Akwanga Highway, Akure Expressway, Abuja Abaji Lokoja Road, Zaria Sokoto Guzau, Bauchi Tafa Balewa Highway, Ukari Takum Road, and Minakotongora Road. And so, talking about roads, these roads have been identified. You may only be able to speak to what happens in Lagos and environment, but I'm sure you hold meetings with national sector commanders as well. So in terms of travel advisory, do you have a way of giving out information to people who are going to be using roads for highways to look out for or to watch?
Yes, that's the road that they call public enlightenment office in Abuja has been doing traffic advisory unit, and every morning, like we have in Lagos, I have a particular unit that talks about the various road network and the condition and the traffic flow, and that one is an expansion when it comes to national level. It comes from there because they have daily reports of what the road is from every command and unit, and it's the responsibility of that particular office to tell the entire world. We have a platform, and we have our national radio too that reeled out all this information to members of the public. But while you are trying to reel out the various routes, I wouldn't know the aspect. Is it as it affects security or safety?
Oh, you already said it. You said there is a nexus that there can hardly be safety without security. You talked about it the other time. Exactly. If the road is bad, the road cannot be safe, and if the road is not safe, then there is security vulnerability. Because
if they are being categorized as dangerous routes because of bad roads, I know federal government is doing palliative virtually everywhere. That's what we are. Because I remember last year, I had reason to stop the construction work on Lagos Ibadan Express. Not to stop. I don't have the authority to advise. And we were so mean about it, but they got the body language. Because there was a time recently that we spent close to 8 hours along this corridor because of irregular diversion, without considering the effect on the road users. So that was what we adopted last year. I think towards the 20th of December, I was just watching one international news, and I was informed that the Prime Minister directed all construction to stop to enable people to travel freely during Christmas. But coming down to our hand here, they would tell us they have targets, and they must meet up with their targets. So what about the comfort of the road users? So that prompted our decision and said, all construction work must stop. And it stopped. You agree with me when you are traveling home last year, that from 23rd, the movement was very smooth. I wouldn't know what happened in other parts of the country. But from Lagos, at least Lagos Ibadan Expressway, it was a very smooth movement until 30th, when we had a major crisis, when a gas tanker, blocked the road for almost 12 hours. So this year we have started. From 17th, you notice that the Lagos Ibadan Expressway is now being realigned by Julius Baja, that's Lagos end. While that of Ibadan too, by 23rd, they will close down and open up. Because when gridlock is removed from the traveling time, we have enough time to play with while traveling. And that's what I also brought to Lagos. Because if it takes you 30 minutes from Ojuelegba or wherever you are boarding your vehicle from to Okara, you are proceeding on a trip to the east.
Yeah.
You get to the east and ample time. But when you spend 4 hours within Lagos to get to Kara, you want to catch up with time, and that will bring about overspeeding. And when there's overspeeding, there's loss of control, there's crash. So truly, so this advisory, this traffic advisory unit, they are really doing well in Abuja, because we believe that when you have a first-hand information about your trip, just like you said, having an understanding of your route is very important. And that's what I've always advocated when we go to motor parks. When you are proceeding on a journey, ask the man that just returned the previous day, how is that road? So when you are getting to a particular point, your mind is prepared. They say Kefi so road is bad, it's not too good. You fine-tune your mind towards that. If you're on speed, you reduce your speed because you have been told ahead. That is also, information is quite jamming, and we don't joke with that.
Absolutely, and I guess that's the advice here for everyone who is taking a trip. Ensure that you do the needful. You're going to travel, you're going to go to places. Find out the information about the roads that you go, because that's the whole essence of this particular conversation. So, Mr. Oji, how do you take some of the information on board that come from multilateral security agencies in government? You know, there is the responsibility of the state, but then there are those who are also advocating that, wait a minute, the states don't really control any security apparatus, not even as little as the Road Safety Commission. Permit me using that little, word there. So when these information come, some also say that sometimes it is difficult for politicians or government officials to take some of these on board, maybe because of some, as he said, targets set for some contractors.
Yeah, if I were not a Nigerian, perhaps I was only an Ebonyi man, I would have said that this discussion appears strange to an Ebonyi man. The reason is that Ebonyi State has got no issue about bad road infrastructure at all. Under the administration of His Excellency Engineer Chief David Nwezumahe, our road network is intact. We call Ebonyi State a global village. So the moment you are coming to Southeast, if you are going to whether Cross River, you are going to Benue State, any other part through Ebonyi State, you can be sure that you've got a very wonderful road infrastructure.
I don't expect you to say any less. You are Commissioner for Information.
I'm not trying to.
I understand, but I'm just asking, you are the only one who is a government official per se here, I mean, who is, part of the policy-making process. So I'm just asking, when a government gets such information as concerning safety and security, the natural, rather the default position of government most of the time, as far as many people are concerned, is to defend itself. There are those who will say, well, you are in government, so this is the most that you can say. But then if other people come with other information, unfortunately, no one is here, and I'm not expecting anyone to come and counter you. But in terms of policy formation and encouraging security officials in the state, federal security officials to do their jobs, what kind of partnership does the state put in, and how do we get people to be part of the security and safety process, especially for the youth side?
Yeah, our relationship, being a Ebonyi State government's relationship with security agencies has been very, very robust, I tell you. And that is one of the reasons why we have got a lot of things right in Ebonyi State in the area of safety and security. What we do is to ensure that we integrate the processes in our policy. Of course, my ministry that is in charge of state orientation, giving people orientation, is always on duty, carrying out advocacies. And of course, we also try to get feedback, from the people about their responses and reactions to, all of these issues.
In terms of orientation for safety and security, what kind of information do you put out, and what kind of feedback do you get?
What we do is to have a synergy with all of these agencies responsible for all of this information. Then we have a kind of collaboration. We give back that same information to the people in the rural communities. We have our network, the PROs, the information officers. They'll go back through trunk criers, through traditional means, or to traditional agencies to educate our people. That in ember months, for instance, that's what we call it, you need to be much more conscious of your environment, especially strangers who are coming into the community. Some of them are not natives, so you need to be conscious of that, know those that are coming in. And those that are returning, you need to also brief them about the happenings, within the place. And for me, it is a judgment day. This period is a period for people to take account about what governments in their place are doing, talking about federal government, local government, and state government. And I think that any person who doesn't come home, in a year should think twice. If we are looking at putting government on toes, you should be able to, wherever you are, come back home to see what your government has done. Go back to where you are and see if it's possible for you to even relocate to your place. And that is going to be a clarion call to our people. Come back to Ebonyi State this festive period and see what Governor Mahi is doing.
You support the idea of people traveling during the Yuletide?
Very, very important. It's important they travel, because when you come back, you meet your people, peers, you meet friends, brothers, whom you've never seen for a long time, those even within and outside the shores of the country. So it is important that we do that. Once a year is not bad.
Okay. Mr. Okoli, do you agree with him?
Yes and no. And like he rightly said, he can vouch for Ebonyi State. But Ebonyi is only one in the 5 southeastern states. I'm from Anambra. The level of insecurity in Anambra is unprecedented.
Well, you would say that because, as I said to him, he is in government, you are in opposition, so it's only natural.
It's not about opposition, whether you are in government or not. You see, the insecurity is plain and glaring. It's not a government issue. It's not an opposition issue. The insecurity is unprecedented in Southeast as a whole, except they are not reporting it.
Okay. As a political consultant, my apologies. Yes. As a political consultant, the only thing that anti-state activists, or rather non-state actors, as they call them professionally, would want to do is to perpetrate lack of safety and lack of security in any environment. There are those who say that much of the insecurity that we hear about in the country, they are all largely politically motivated. And as a result, when you raise these issues, and he's saying people should come back to Ebonyi State, they have to pass through one state or the other to get to Ebonyi State. Exactly. If, for instance, they're going to pass through Anambra State, you are essentially saying that nobody should pass through Anambra State to get to Ebonyi State, just for instance.
That's not exactly what I'm saying. I'm talking out of experience of insecurity. A lot of people, I came back from Anambra State last night. I drove also.
Wow.
So, but I am telling you, let me give you a typical example of why it is this much. A candidate is going on his normal campaign, a governorship candidate, Ubiora Basimelo, from his hometown, isn't it, in Newi South local government, to Asia Ihiala local government. And he was abducted. Let me tell you something. I'm talking about information. I'm not asking security agencies to give you detail of what they are doing inside, behind the scene. No. The information I mean is acknowledge the fact that we have problems in our hand and the government is doing something. But I'll give you an example. Lagos State government, during these NSAS issues, always come out. Yes, we will constitute a panel that will look into this report and this and that, acknowledging something happened. But this one is completely mute. Nothing was said. They picked him up September 18. Till today, the state government hasn't said, hey, a candidate was arrested, was abducted. But the government is doing something.
Just on that, if the state government does not acknowledge, the National Assembly has acknowledged. And I think that
no, the National Assembly did not acknowledge that. Federal House representative of Ekusigo, Newe North and South, in the Honorable Chris Azobogo, made an appeal. That is not National Assembly acknowledging. Okay. But this is after a number of months. Okay. But all the same, that's not where I'm coming from.
My point on that, my apologies, my point on that is, when it was reported that the House of Representatives, not just of course, only one person has to move the motion.
Yes.
The House of Representatives resolved that the DSS and the police should step in to get things done. I haven't followed up on how far that information has been followed up by the security operatives that have been talked about. But the point that you're raising is valid. Now, in terms of safety in the season,
Yes.
what would be your counsel, especially to politicians? Because they have also been warned by several people
Yeah.
that, look,
Watch out.
watch out wherever you are going, especially at this festive season. Be careful, be circumspect, and all of that. As an opposition person, what would be your counsel to fellow politicians?
Yes, to fellow politicians, I would say if you must travel, go straight to where and what we are going to do. There is no room for that merriment up and down because of the security challenges.
Okay.
If you must travel, if you have the burial, go straight to the burial and then find your way home.
Okay. Well, for families, I mean, you've talked largely about families, and families can be in any field, including political families.
Yes.
I know they have families.
You know, it would seem like, from what the gentlemen have said, families of politicians, leaders, are largely vulnerable.
Absolutely.
What would be your counsel? What's been your experience following that particular space, and what would be your counsel?
My counsel will be that, I think politicians also attract a lot of attention to themselves. I think at this point and at this period, they should try as much as possible to do some kind of masquerading, if I may use that word, or masking. Try and protect the children, the family, your wives, not by creating noise around them, having security agency make noise, the siren and things like that. I think that is not going to work. And when you do that, be sure that they know that there's some VIP. So try as much as possible. They should quiet the noise around them, protect the children, protect the wife, protect the parents, protect the entire family. Because really, it's one person from that family that is a politician, but the entire family is going to feel the pain, God forbid, if anything should happen, like the politician that had been abducted. Now, I can't even imagine the kind of Christmas the family is having right now. Because there's a saying in Yoruba that says that, it's better that the person is dead than you looking for that person. So really, they should try as much as possible to just make sure that things are quiet around the family.
Well, just to take your final word on this, because we've gone quite far on this, Mr. Ogungbemide. So people are going to be traveling. And she's talked about the fact that they need to have a good car on the road and all those things. When people travel on the road, they don't use Hoovers. They use cars. They use vehicles that have tires.
Yes.
What are the things to look out for, in your opinion?
Well, the first, I would say, is making sure your vehicle is up to the minimum safety standard. That means, like she rightly said, if you have to travel, I love that word, that phrase, if you have to travel.
In other words, you may consider not traveling.
Because there was a particular year that people refused to travel,
Yeah.
especially to the eastern part.
Yeah.
I started my career from Aba as a young officer. And I could recall that from Aba to other part of the east, and we're not even talking of interstate now, I'm talking within Abia State. If you see the movement from Aba to the other part of the east from 23rd, if you drop a pin, it will not reach the tarmac, the tarred road. And the same way they move, in January, they will still move back. But one fact is that it's not all that moves that return. And the year will still continue the following year.
Absolutely.
And that's why we have to be careful about this I must. There's nothing I must. There's nothing that is inevitable. Because we are talking of movement. We are not sure of the status of our vehicles. Like you have said, a gridlock that could keep people on the road for 8 hours. What about the Earth challenge? So many people lost their lives in the course of that inconvenience because somebody put a bad vehicle on the road, especially this articulated vehicle. That's why we've been doing a kind of mop-up in the last few months, that all those trucks that are not good, I just tried to discuss one with her at the background. about some trucks we have been arresting of recent. If such, okay, not far-fetched, the one that happened 30th of last year, 30th December, for more than 12 hours. Please, if you know that your vehicle is not fit to be on the road, don't let it get close to that road. That's one thing, mostly these articulated vehicles, because we have done a lot, we have given enough advocacy. And for the smaller cars, the tendency for overloading is always high. Family, I must move with my entire family. It's even risky that you put all your eggs in one basket. Somebody will say, I can't separate my family. But with one sweep, a crash can take the entire family. We've been advised most times that if you have tendency to separate them, let them travel differently. But if you are very sure that you are a good manager of, because that's where defensive driving comes in, you can be sure of yourself. What of the other road users? So if you're sure that you can manage all other road users around you, then you can proceed, but make sure there's no overloading.
I just want to be asking a question. If I can control my driving, can I control the other person's driving?
Yes, you can. That's what we call defensive driving. Ability to be able to drive in the midst of all the dangers without endangering yourself.
Interesting.
Because you must have foresight, you must be alert, and you must have correct judgment. And above all, courtesy and carefulness. If you have all these factors, in Western world, nobody drives one vehicle. One man sits inside his car, drive for the one ahead, drive from the one behind, and the one that is coming the opposite. That means from your seat, you think for the remaining three.
Yeah, essentially giving us lectures here.
Absolutely.
I hope the politicians are taking notes.
We all need it.
Well, gentlemen, I don't even know. It's definitely something to keep in mind consistently throughout the season, because at the end of the day, Nigeria belongs to every single one of us. I have to thank you, gentlemen, for being here. First, let me do the ladies' first thing. Bola Edwards is a child safety and security expert, and she's also convener Strap and Safety
Safe Child Foundation. Child
Foundation. Thank you for your time
You're
this
welcome.
morning. Stanley Okoli, right beside her, is a political consultant. Thank you so much for your time. We've also had the pleasure of Mr. Olusegun Ogungbemide, who is the Lagos Sector Commander of Federal Road Safety Corps. Thanks for joining us today.
Pleasure.
As well as Uchenna Oji, Commissioner for Information and Orientation in Ebonyi State. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Sunrise continues after now. Please stay with us.